Okay, Rabba Rav Yosef, Pumbedisa, Vadi Rav Yehuda, Rabba Rav Yosef, who are in Pumbedisa with Rav Yehuda. Kol Chav Echad Amar Lechavei Melech. Each one said to spend you be the next Rosh Yeshiva. V'lo Ben Nefshar Rabbanus Lemeve Reisha, and they were not each one did not want to make upon himself to be the to be the Rosh Yeshiva. First, himself himself Hurios, some himself brachos. The Rabbi Rav Yosef Itzchulu Shaita. The Rabbi Rav Yosef they it's Shaita. I guess they had to become one of them had to become Rosh Yeshiva, and the yeah, so Shalchu, and they sent him. They sent him. They sent the messenger. So Rabbi Yosef Kadim. Yosef should take precedence. He should be Rosh Yeshiva. Do Sinai because he's Sinai. But and everybody requires the Marichitai, the master of the wheat, meaning that Rabbi Yosef knew more. He was more of a bucky, and therefore he was the master of the grain. Therefore, he should get precedence. Rabbi Yosef. Yosef nevertheless did not accept the this position. So he says on the bottom he says that the long thing here, which is worth seeing. Dava Sinai, Ava Rabba Okker Harim. Now here's a very interesting shot here. What Okker Harim means. Literally, normally we understand it means that you should uproot the uprooted mountains and we'll grind them all against each other in lumdus. So he says, when they were left Egypt, Hashem name Yomam, the cloud of Hashem would go in front of them during the day, name Asaderech, and it would straighten the rain in front of them. I never heard this before. Again, going to I think what Rashi says there in Gemara is that you uproot mountains and grind them against each other in Svara. But he's saying no. The Anan in the middle is called Okker Harim. Every mountain which stood in the way, Anan Okro, the mountain, the cloud would uproot it, Tochno, and grind it. When it got to a deep place, notice it Afar Sham, the cloud would put the dirt there. Until it's smooth the whole way. Below Sham, Loharim, below Gaon, so we're in mountains nor valleys. And when Misha Arachon, it's one plane. So this cloud was superior than the mountains. Was able to overcome them. It was even greater than our Sinai, right? Because our Sinai was the low and inferior among the mountains. But when the honor came to our Sinai, it didn't uproot it. So therefore, the maybe Dilma Sinai Okker Harim. Maybe Sinai is superior than Okker Harim, right? Because Sinai was not uprooted in front of the Anan. The Mishimufupa that it's Kushos Yasher Liasher Sasuya. So somebody who's very sharp and knew to answer questions and to smooth out the sugya. Kale Okker Harim is called Okker Harim. Shafu Okker Sakushos, he puts the questions she yesh besugya. They make grinds up very finely. Achim Yasher Sasuya till he smooths out the sugya. Come on, none like the cloud. Okker Harim, which would uproot the mountains. And grind them against each other. And straighten out the road. Mishu Baki Gadol, somebody who's very conversant in Mishnah, Brisa. He's very conversant in Torah. He's not missing anything, whether for Mishnah or Brisa. Mishnah, right? Mishnah and Brisa, Karli Sinai. He's called Sinai. Sinai need no call Torah because in Sinai the entire Torah is given its entirety. Nothing was lacking. Kasher Nifta Rabbi Yehuda died. Rosh Yeshiva Pumbedisa. Tzichem knows Ois Rabba. They had to appoint Rabba to Okker Harim, who would uproot the mountains. Ois Rav Yosef, who have seen who's seen it was Sinai. The Lord of Bnei Yeshiva as Milam Lich in the Midbar. The Anan uprooted all the mountains, but not Har Sinai. So maybe Har Sinai is superior. V'sholchu lishos Rosh Yeshivas Eretz Yisrael l'sherum dover zeh. So what are you supposed to do? Shol Eretz Yisrael, they said, Akol tzichin l'morich Ava gav the ein lon lachriya. We don't know mi'adif who's more important. Non shakar sarim, the mountain which uproots the cloud which uproots the mountain, or Sinai amak neged anon, or Sinai which stood up to the cloud. V'lon ekar upon him, it wasn't uprooted from it. Again, I never heard this shot before. Come, yeah, could be it's in Rashi. I never noticed it. I don't know.
It might be in a medrash, but it's interesting.
Yeah, the Moses Rabba and Rav Yosef Balchitim and Toiche. We can also join another analogy between Rabba and Yosef as between the master of the grain and the grinder, the miller. Rav Yosef Toimel Balchitim is like the master, the owner of the grain. Shayu Bucky Harbe was very bucky. Commotion Rav Yosef Atzmo Vrat was a koch short. I was able to carry much grain with the power of an ox. He was like the miller. He was able to do the lumdus of the sugya, bokeres, akushios, and uproot the questions. The tochnon and grind them, mill them. Yasheres sugya. Now mission bakesh lechol lechem. But somebody wants to eat bread, so he has to first go to the master of the wheat. He knows him a kav kabayim to require from him a kav or two kav. And then let's go to the miller, the tochnim, to mill them. So should start l'shneim, so he needs both of them. Nevertheless, somebody who it suffices for him to satisfy his hunger with toasted grain or cooked grain, he doesn't need the miller. He only needs the master of the grain. He knows in a kav to buy for him a kav or two. I mean, it starts talking cloud. He doesn't need the miller at all. So everybody needs the master of the grain. Not everybody requires the grinder, the miller. Okay, fascinating. Okay, so that is very interesting. So in any event, so going back to the text, so I feel like he looked at Rabbi Yosef. Yosef did not accept upon himself by the way, in the in the text, in the Rabinowitz text, he just said Sinai Rabbi Yosef which is the normal way of understanding it. He just knew a lot without this whole drasha of Har Sinai and the Anon. So that's the way I always understood it. Anyway, so Rabbi Yosef is not makabel upon himself to this to be the Rosh Yeshiva. I feel like Loki Rabbi Yosef. Because the soothsayers, the stargazers, said Liime to his mother, the Malach Rabbi Yosef Tartishina Palga, that Rabbi Yosef is going to be Rosh Yeshiva for only 2.5 years. Malach Rabba, so therefore he says that I've only got 2.5 years. I'd rather 2.5 years be later rather than earlier, because at the end of 2.5 years it means I'm going to die. So let Rabbi Yosef let Rabba be the Rosh Yeshiva for 22 years, and which he was, and then Rabbi Yosef Moch Rabba Chabeshnin, Moch Rabbi Yosef Basrei Tatishinu Palka. So the Rabbi Yosef was Rosh Yeshiva for after him 2.5 years. Became the Kol Chad V'Chad Mitchel Gabi Chavrei, since each one was willing to forego to his friend initially, of course. So therefore, Kamas Milsem, evidently their learning was sustained. He says here at the bottom, Kamas in this Kamach Lokta. Shalon Yishtachne Echmem Limloch. Really? So the way he explains in text on page Kuf Tzadi Beis, Nishan Yom Talivo made for first he says Timishayim Shana Aschuma Zeklos Eseshim Berach Neshu Kibas Mosa Tafkid above Nishmi. So he didn't accept Rabbah, even though he was acting Rosh Yeshiva, he didn't accept by himself the official position for 10 years. And then the subsequent years he was officially Rosh Yeshiva. Nisha Tolimot Abisha Mais in the fall Olad Hagar Rabba Nishara Misras Rosh Mesit Pnuyab over Rishmi. So the job of Rosh Yeshiva and Pumbedisa in a formal way remained vacant for, I guess, 10 years. Okay. So going back to the text here on the screen, came Kol Chacham Mikavei Kamas Milson Bava Ozu Rabba Gabi Rav Chisda Lasura Kamashne. The Rabbi, I guess, deferred to Rav Chisda, who was in Surah for several years. The Sof Yomi Rav Chisda, at the end of Rav Chisda's lifetime, Karchaza Rabbi Tzichle Shait and Pumbedisa, when he saw that they need him, or it's in Pumbedisa, so I guess they needed somebody to take the formal position. Maybe they weren't doing enough fundraising without having a former Rosh Yeshiva. Kavalei Rishon Nusa, he accepted by himself the Rosh Yeshiva ship. He was altogether, I guess, 22 years. Umeis B'shnas Talan, he died in the year Taf Reish Lamed Aleph. So he says, what's the Tzichlei Shai Pumbedisa Shnit Rav Huna Bar Chia, Moshe Parish Kaman Oz Beis. And there was somebody there who was, Rav Huna Bar Chia was somehow a co-Rosh Yeshiva or something, I don't know. It's astonishing. She Rabbi Chim Loch, but Sophie May Rav Chisda became the Rosh Yeshiva at the end of the days of Chisda. Can Chilas Malchus Yisrael B'Shnas Tofresh Chof. She Sophie May Rav Chisda. Kekasar Be'el El Perek Tosvav. So obviously he's going to ask the question, how can it be 22 years afterwards? He's going to answer that the last 12 years, the formal years, were part of the 22. So we'll see this. I guess we'll see inside. Tarach, when Rav Chisda died, Ashas Talash Shifta Rabba and Semel Yud Beishana Blocha Beis, only 12 years. Unless you say that he became Rosh Yeshiva medium when Rav Yehuda died, B'Shnas Tari, Yimtzucha Beishana B'Tiras Rabba B'Shnas Tara, then you have 22 years. Mirabena Mer Peish Rabba Sophia Made Rav Chisda is Chil Rabba Limloch. But he says, especially at the end of the days of Chisda, he started being the Rosh Yeshiva. Going furthermore, the Nama Mach Rabba Yarcha B'Tiras Rav Yehuda came Lomach Ravuna B'Chia Klau. Ravuna B'Chia was not Rosh Yeshiva at all. It was Rosh Yeshiva for several years. He was only former Rosh Yeshiva for those 12 years. We count from the time he died, Rabba wrote Wilim Loch. It sounds like he was acting Rosh Yeshiva and dead. Who evidently for the first 10 years was serving as Rosh Yeshiva, was not suitable to be the actual Rosh Yeshiva, but they appointed him temporarily. So they did, because Rabbi Yosef did not acquiesce either one to be the former Rosh Yeshiva. So he died in 319. Okay, so let's see here what he says it in base. We heard from the great rabbis in the Arm of Sifta. These years after Rabba Rishonusa, when Rabba was not willing to accept the former Rosh Yeshiva-ship, Rav Huna Bar Chia Pumbedisa. Rav Huna Bar Chia was the Rosh Yeshiva Pumbedisa, Bavle Hasa Medrash Gadol, and had a great base medrash there. So that's what we're referring to. So the first 10 years, Rav Huna Bar Chia was the former Rosh Yeshiva. Katshachib, when Rav Huna Bar Chia died, basically Shaita, and it was necessary to point another one, Rabba, Lemeve Resha, to point Rabba to Rosh Yeshiva, Kabbalah Rashinusa. He accepted Rosh Yeshiva Shab Kiyek Lo to Batel Term Mesif to Pumbedisa, in order that the Rosh Yeshiva bit the Torah and Mesif to Pumbedisa, the Ruba Rabbanan, you saw have awesome. Most of the rabbis and most of the Jews, okay, were there. V'mach Rabba, to Rabba Manachmei Pumbedisa, v'Rabba Sham Torah Harbe. Okay, they was so after Shamda Doraisa.
What do you mean Ravat?
What?
What is Ravat's Sham? We spread. Marbit.
Harbatzas Torah. Yeah, Marbit's Torah.
Okay.
We spread. Yeah. Sham the Doraisa. Then there was a Shas Ashmad. Sham Doraisa nach Navshei Machmas Gezer Shgoz Malchus on the Torah. Nifta Rabba. Sham Malchus Gozra Shalei Katsuas Yehudim Lemod Yarchei Kala. Vovar Kinsam. He went and he gathered them. Vilshino and they snitched upon him to the Malchus of Bar Mehem, and he pled them at his galga dover of a mace until they so it happened that this whole story, which is brought down, that it was called them Shamayim to Zava Machlekes, who was having Shamayim, but he was on the run when this happened. He says here on the note on page Kuf Tzad Gimel in the text, he says, so it's a Kufa Sassanid period. Even though they protected Jews from the Roman Christian persecutions, they put upon them heavy taxes to support their wars. But now he gives the story. The story is so they snitched on him. He's been Mabato 12,000 men. Yarcha Liketa, a month during the summer, Yarcha Besitva, a month in the fall for the Yarchei Kala. So the Yarchei Kala, the Yarchei Kala, Adab Elu. So evidently these people for those months, they were in the Yarchei Kala, they weren't paying taxes. Right? And so therefore people got upset at them. He says this also down here. He has a long political statement here. He says here. See so here. V'atit ma'adavar ki gam yemei yeshudim shenafsham choleh b'machalot tarbut hamarav. Tani kamashe boruchim v'avrichim yoshim b'liyeshiva v'motor zemase batlanut. V'lab midei demahane afra l'bumayu. Ki abachrim b'archim oskim b'torah b'yeshivot ha'kdoshot hey mekam Yisrael v'shom Yisrael v'hem azanim mazon l'chol Yisrael ki l'kol nizom mishul chanina b'yidni ki l'amina b'tanit chavdal them beit. So throws in a bit of a polemic there. In any event, so they Achli Bekursa, so Arak min so he snitched on him. Barak min Priskaton, he fled from the officials of the king, or whoever it was. La'agma to the swamps. The Shalvas, he died there. Then his whole story is brought down that is Nizbakish Yeshiva Shamala because he had to determine the Psak and Machlekes and Shamayim. And V'nafal Piskam in Shmai Pumbedisa, and a note fell from Shamayim in Pumbedisa. Rabba Rachmeni Nizbakish B'Yeshiva Shamala. Rabba Rachmeni is in Yeshiva Shamala. Chol Ma'aseh Kulo Commotion first B'Gemara D'Asochos Palim, and the whole story is explained there in Asochos Palim. V'lein Shane Rabba Bar Avuna Marbitz Torah B'Sura. In these years, Rabba Avuna was evidently the Rabba Rachmeni. But Pumbedisa Rabba Bar Chiava Marbitz Torah. Besura V'Sara Rachmeni Rosh Yeshiva Pumbedisa Tatishin Palga Yishar Bishnas Tarlad, and he died in Tarlad. That brings us to the end of the parak, and I think we'll stop here.
Okay, shkach.
Okay, Kol Tuv.
Okay.